If you own a Silverado with cylinder deactivation, you already know why this video exists. Maybe yours has been flawless. A lot of them have. Or maybe you've heard a tick on a cold morning and felt your stomach drop, because you know what that can turn into. So when Chevrolet pulled the cover off the next generation truck with two brand new V8s, one question mattered more than horsepower. Is that system still in there? Here's the answer. General Motors has not said. Not confirmed, not denied. As of right now, they haven't published it. What I can give you is everything that is on the record. The one document that started all the speculation, what it does and doesn't establish, and the exact paperwork to demand before you sign anything on a truck nobody outside GM has lived with yet. Start with the solid ground, because there's a good deal of it. Chevrolet revealed the next generation Silverado 1500 in June. Two new V8s, a 5.7-liter and a 6.6-liter. These aren't reworked versions of what you've got. They're a 6th generation small block, a new family, replacing the 5.3 L84 and the 6.2 L87. Assembly at Flint, Tonawanda, and St. Catharines. 10-speed automatic standard across the lineup. 7 trims. 4 engines total. The 2 V8s plus the 2.7 Turbomax and the 3.0 Duramax. On sale end of this year. Chevrolet's claim is that it offers the most powerful naturally aspirated V8 in its class. That's a marketing statement based on their competitive comparison, and they haven't released a horsepower number yet. When you see 400 or 475 quoted online, understand those are estimates, not published figures. The money behind it is real, and it's specific. GM announced $888 million for the Tonawanda plant and $579 million for Flint, alongside investments at other facilities. And GM's executive chief engineer Mark Dickens stated they put these engines through an extensive testing and validation process to deliver the durability and dependability Silverado customers expect. That's a company making durability a headline, worth noting, and worth being precise about what it is. It's a launch message and a stated commitment. It isn't a specification, and it isn't an admission about anything that came before. Now here's the gap. In everything Chevrolet published about this truck, there's no statement on valvetrain architecture, no mention of whether these engines shut cylinders down, keep all 8 running, or use some different approach. That silence is doing a lot of work, because it's the exact question this audience has. As recently as this spring, the publication that covers General Motors more closely than anyone stated, plainly that the situation is unclear, that it isn't yet known whether the Gen 6 truck engines will have cylinder deactivation, while noting it would be reasonable to expect it. So the honest position isn't that the system is gone, it also isn't that it's definitely there. It's that GM hasn't published enough production-level detail to settle it, and you shouldn't buy the truck on a promise either way until they do. Which brings us to the thing that convinced half the internet it had an answer. And there is a real document here. People are just reading more into it than it says. In December, a GM patent application was published, filed back in June of 2024. It describes a variable-displacement valvetrain system using rocker shaft porting and insert sleeves, relying on controlled hydraulic pressure to stop valve actuation on certain cylinders. It's written for pushrod engines with rocker arms, overhead valve designs like a small block. Here's why owners latched onto it, and the reasoning isn't stupid. Take the 4 levels of evidence one at a time, because they're different things. 1. The patent exists. That's a fact. 2. It describes a technically different way of deactivating cylinders, working at a different point in the valve train than the current system. 3. That difference could matter. Failures on the current system have often centered on the lifter, collapsed or stuck lifters, sometimes with camshaft or pushrod damage following. A design that handles deactivation elsewhere could change that particular vulnerability. 4. And this is where the internet stopped reading. A patent doesn't establish production use. Manufacturers file patents constantly for ideas that never reach a dealership. This application isn't tied to the Silverado in any published document, and it carries no evidence of production validation. It's genuine engineering work on a real problem. It is not a specification for the truck you'd be buying. And be careful with the leap that follows, too. Not every lifter failure traces to deactivation. Not every tick is that system. and a different deactivation location wouldn't by itself guarantee a durable valve train. There's a recent example worth exactly 1 minute of your time, because it shows how a claim like this hardens into fact. Earlier this year, videos circulated claiming GM had already removed cylinder deactivation from the 2026 Silverado and Sierra. That claim was incorrect. Dynamic fuel management remains in the Gen 5 engines, and nothing changed for the 2026 model year. The reporting that corrected it made a point I think matters more than the story itself. Unsupported claims get picked up by search engines and repeated back to anyone asking the question, until they start to look confirmed. So if you went looking this year and came away thinking the system was already gone, that's why. The lesson isn't that everything online is wrong, it's to ask what document a claim rests on. Something else needs saying, because this topic tends to flatten people into one story. Plenty of men have paid for lifter, camshaft, and valve train repairs on these engines. That's real, it's expensive, and anyone brushing it off as bad luck hasn't opened the bill. And plenty of others have run cylinder deactivation trucks well past 200,000 miles without ever touching that valve train. That's real too, and those owners get told they're wrong by people who've never sat in their truck. Both experiences are true. Neither one tells you anything about the new engine family. Your neighbor's good truck doesn't prove the design is fine. Your buddy's rebuild doesn't prove it's doomed. Individual stories aren't population data, and they're certainly not production specifications. So if you're seriously considering one of these, here's what to require. Not conversation, documents. First, does the final production engine use cylinder deactivation in any form? Ask for it from the ordering guide, the build sheet, the RPO description, or the window sticker. A salesperson's verbal answer doesn't settle it, and that's not a knock on him. Final specs may not exist at his desk yet. If he says he doesn't know, that's an honest answer. Second, what does the powertrain warranty contractually cover? For how long? And what's excluded? Not because the terms reveal anything about what GM expects to fail, they don't. Warranty terms reflect all kinds of business decisions. Because you should know precisely what you're covered for on an engine with no field history. Third, is your deposit refundable? Can you change powertrain if the specifications change? And will the dealer put the deactivation answer in writing before delivery? That's the one that protects you, because it doesn't depend on anybody's memory later. And understand what nobody has yet. GM has internal development and validation testing. Dickens said so. What doesn't exist is independent owner history, high mileage field data, or service bulletin history. Those come from customers driving trucks for years. That's not a criticism of the engine. It's just the calendar. There are 3 legitimate ways to handle this, and I'm not going to pretend one makes you smarter. Buy early if you need a truck now, and the new one fits what you do. Somebody has to be first, and first-year buyers aren't fools. Wait for final documentation. Let GM publish the specs, then order knowing what's under the hood. Costs you a few months. Wait for field history. Give it a year or two and let owner reports and service data accumulate. Costs you more time, and it's worth being honest. Waiting doesn't guarantee every issue surfaces on your schedule. Different needs, different answers. Pick the one that fits your situation, not the one that sounds toughest. Here's where I land. GM has confirmed a major new V8 family and made durability a central part of how they're presenting it. They have not published enough production-level valve train detail to determine whether cylinder deactivation stays, changes form, or disappears. The patent is real evidence of engineering work on that exact problem, and it proves nothing about what's in the truck. So don't believe either extreme until the documentation exists. Not the people telling you it's gone, not the people telling you nothing's changed. When GM publishes the specifications, I'll cover them, and if these engines run all 8 cylinders all the time, I'll be glad to say so. Now tell me in the comments if you've got a truck with cylinder deactivation. Give me your year, your mileage, and whether you've had trouble with it or whether it's been solid. Both answers matter, and the men shopping right now deserve to see the honest spread rather than only the horror stories. If your Silverado's still earning its keep, hit subscribe.